Imagine a toddler suddenly speaking about a past life, and not just any past life, but one where he had been killed. This is exactly what happened to 3-year-old Blake Hocken of Wisconsin back in 1992. In a story later featured on Unsolved Mysteries, Blake stunned his family by claiming he'd been hit by a truck and killed while crossing a street, in a life before his own. At first, his mother Colleen dismissed this as the fanciful talk of a child. But over time, Blake's strange symptoms grew so severe that she became certain he was remembering something real. The tale of Blake Hocken is a spooky one. Is it evidence of reincarnation, or just a wild coincidence? Blake's story began innocently. One day, after watching a garbage truck pass their house, little Blake told his mom, "A real truck hurt me." He insisted he had been struck by a real truck, not just a toy, in another life. At 3 years old, he told her, "I was hit by a truck," and even began holding his left ear in pain, as if the phantom collision had caused a real injury. Colleen initially thought he was confused. But then the weird symptoms set in. Blake became withdrawn, depressed, and complained of aches on the left side of his body. He refused to play, pushing away hugs, even saying, "I love you. I hate you," to his distraught parents. He developed a compulsive fear around trucks, at one point, trying to run into the street as if reliving the accident. None of these changes had an obvious medical cause. Even doctor visits showed nothing physically wrong. As a parent, you can imagine how terrifying this must have been for Colleen. Her little boy was in emotional pain, yet she had no idea why. Blake's specific language, "Truck hurt me under the wheels. I died," was so vivid that it felt more like something really happened to him, not just a scary dream. It wasn't just the words. He described a big building, presumably a hospital, and flatly stated, "They took me to this big building. I died." These were not normal toddler tales. In fact, a researcher later noted that many children who recall past lives also experience phantom physical pains or compulsions that echo their memory. Exactly what Blake did. What do you think? If your child said something like this, would you panic or chalk it up to imagination? Many of Blake's neighbors might have dismissed him. But his mother couldn't. Over time, she realized Blake's grief and fear were real, even if she didn't understand where they came from. Eventually, a series of uncanny events forced her to take Blake's claims seriously. The turning point came on a family trip to London. One afternoon, Colleen and her family stood at a busy intersection with baby Blake in his stroller. Suddenly, Blake jumped up and walked into the street in front of an oncoming truck. Miraculously, the driver braked in time and Blake's father yanked him back from the road. Heart racing, Colleen demanded, "Where were Mommy and Daddy when this happened?" Incredibly, Blake replied, "Gone bye-bye at the store." He behaved as if he remembered exactly what had occurred. The very scenario he described months earlier had played out again in a new life. This real-world close call sent chills down Colleen's spine. Something clicked in her mind, she later reported. All at once, she wondered, could Blake's past life claims somehow be connected to this incident? Earlier that day, Blake had again told her his story when a garbage truck went by. Suddenly Colleen had to admit, maybe her little boy was recalling a past tragedy. And if so, what could she do to help him? Back home, Colleen turned to any clues she could find. By chance, she had seen psychic researcher Brian Weiss on Oprah the day before Blake's first story. Weiss had mentioned that sometimes young children remember previous lives. With that suggestion in mind, it was as if freeing him of the old life's trauma let his spirit finally relax. Bowman later reflected that this case proved a simple model: acknowledge the memory, allow any feelings, then reassure the child that the danger is over. Once Blake knew the truth, that the accident happened to someone else long ago, he no longer felt its shadow on him. Helping a child with past life memories. Drawing on her experience with Blake and others, Bowman offers advice for parents who face similar situations. In essence, she says, be understanding and calm. Key steps include: acknowledge the child's statements. Even if it sounds unbelievable, don't dismiss or scold. Simply listen and ask open questions. This lets the child feel heard. Discern what the child is conveying. Is it a scary memory or a happy one? Understanding whether it's causing fear or anger can guide your response. Allow expression of emotions. If the memory is traumatic, like Blake's, let the child talk about their feelings. Provide a safe space for fear or sadness. Sometimes children cry or act out these stories. Be a steady presence. Clarify past versus present. Gently explain that those events happened in another life/body, not right now, and that they are safe today. This reassurance can be magical. In Blake's case, once his mother emphasized, "You're safe," and he grasped, "different life," all his anxiety disappeared. These steps helped Blake heal his silent wounds. Instead of punishing or ignoring his story, Colleen joined his reality, answered his questions calmly, and repeatedly affirmed the safety of Blake's current life. The result was astonishing. A child once gripped by an unseen terror suddenly became carefree again. Blake's case is strange, but he is not alone. Parapsychologists have collected dozens of similar anecdotes from around the world. For example, consider Leah Rudolph, a 2-year-old from Idaho, also featured in the same Unsolved Mysteries episode. "I could feel the rocks on my head. I could see the bubbles." For over a year she kept telling this story with identical details. Perhaps tellingly, Leah had always been obsessed with seat belts, insisting everyone buckle up, a habit her mother realized might stem from the trauma Leah remembered. Another famous case is James Leininger. In the early 2000s, this little boy from Louisiana began having nightmares of being trapped in a burning World War II fighter plane. By age 3 he spoke about being a pilot named James who flew off a ship called Natoma Bay, and had a friend named Jack Larson. Investigators later found a World War II pilot named James Houston Jr., who had exactly those details and died in 1945. James's parents even wrote a book, Soul Survivor, about it. His case got widespread media attention. These stories share key patterns. Ian Stevenson, a pioneering researcher of reincarnation cases, noted that in most reports the past life ended just a year or two before the child was born. In Blake's case, if the accident happened shortly before his birth in 1992, the timing would fit this pattern. Also common are birthmarks or birth defects in the child corresponding to injuries of the past life death, not in Blake's story, but in other cases. Children often know things they couldn't have learned normally, like how to ride horses or speak another language, without explanation. Fun fact: in the mid-90s, Oprah did several shows on past lives and reincarnation, reflecting popular fascination. Carol Bowman's own first breakthrough, with a child named Chase, came after watching an Oprah segment. Blake's mom didn't know this at first, but luck and Oprah timing brought Bowman into the picture. Even mainstream television couldn't resist these tales. The original Unsolved Mysteries series featured Blake's story, along with Leah and another child, Chase, on a 1997 episode. Today, with social media and YouTube, there are countless videos and discussion threads about kids with past life memories. It seems this topic never truly goes away. Science, skepticism, and mystery. Of course, not everyone buys the reincarnation explanation. Skeptics argue children might absorb clues from newspapers, TV, overheard stories, or have vivid imaginations. Some suggest extreme anxiety or developmental issues could cause them to act out violent scenarios. It's also possible that parents unconsciously guide the narrative. In Blake's case, however, Colleen knew of no source where her son could have picked up such specific details. Psychical researchers counter that the patterns are hard to dismiss. Stevenson documented thousands of cases worldwide. The Society for Psychical Research notes, belief in some form of rebirth or reincarnation is ancient and widespread. They point out that thorough investigations have confirmed many children's statements with historical evidence. Stevenson and others found median gaps of only 15 months between death and the child's birth in Asia, which matches the quick succession of lives implied in many Western cases like Blake's. Still, no definitive proof exists. In Blake's case, Nobody has identified which person he claims to have been. Without a body or records to match, the case remains officially unsolved. But it did heal one very real child, which leaves a powerful question. Even if we can't scientifically validate it, could the belief in a past life genuinely help a distressed kid? Bowman's approach with Blake suggests that acknowledging a child's reality, however strange, and providing comfort can have remarkable effects. What do you think? Is it crazy, or could there be something more to these stories? If your little one started telling you unbelievable tales, would you believe them, or worry it's a sign of trauma? Let me know in the comments. Remember, even if this sounds like sci-fi, these cases are documented in research journals and TV shows, like the one that featured Blake. Conclusion: the unsolved puzzle. Blake Hocken's story is chilling and heartwarming all at once. It shows how a 3-year-old's bizarre memories can turn a family's life upside down, but also how love, compassion, and a simple explanation can restore peace. The case remains officially unsolved, and that investigators never tied it to a particular victim. But for Blake and his mom, it ended with smiles and safety. Whether or not reincarnation is real, Blake's case leaves us with a mystery. A mystery that keeps us asking, what happens to consciousness after death? The legacy of Blake's story, and others like it, is that it keeps the conversation alive. And who knows, maybe one day science will have answers. Until then, these accounts continue to boggle the mind and captivate our imaginations.